that they should have local law enforcement in Michigan and Pennsylvania start seizing voting equipment. That reporting is brand new and, frankly, red hot. I mean, presumably local reporters in Michigan and Pennsylvania are now doing backflips to try to follow up on this reporting, to try to contact those local officials who were in contact with Trump after the election, to find out what was said to them, to find out if there was ever an active plot to use law enforcement in the state of Michigan, law enforcement in the state of Pennsylvania, to try to go get voting equipment at Trump's insistence. He was asking them for that. Did it go any further than that? And, you know, this opens up a whole new line of inquiry. After Trump told state lawmakers they should have law enforcement seize voting machines, I mean, we should hear about it from those local Republicans in Michigan and Pennsylvania, but we should also probably hear about it from the January 6th investigation, potentially from anybody bringing criminal charges around this plot. Did anybody actually try it? How was this demand from the president received? We've learned a lot about how Trump tried to use the power of the federal government to seize voting machines, to try and change the results of the election in his favor. Was there a state-level component of his plan too? Well, the January 6th investigation is trying to find out. Just in the last hour, the New York Times is newly reporting that the January 6th investigators are scrutinizing Donald Trump's involvement in proposals to seize voting machines after the 2020 election, including efforts to create a legal basis for directing national security agencies to take such an extreme action. That's according to 3 people with knowledge of the committee's activities. The Times is reporting tonight that, quote, "It is not clear what evidence the committee is examining as it looks at any role Trump might have played in encouraging or facilitating the drafting of a so-called national security finding." But the committee recently received documents from the Trump White House, including what court filings described as a document containing presidential findings concerning the security of the election after it occurred and ordering various actions. Joining us now is Michael Schmidt. He's the Washington correspondent for the New York Times, who was one of the reporters who broke the story about Trump's involvement in the plans to seize the voting machines. Mr. Schmidt, it's nice to have you here tonight. Congratulations on this scoop.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a lot of revelations in the last 48 hours. Let me just ask you if I put any of that wrong or if I've got the emphasis the wrong way around, if there's anything that I'm missing out in terms of what you and your colleagues have reported.
No, that was a great summation of it. I think that for us, the most important thing here is that there's a lot of different things that have emerged in the past year that we've learned that Donald Trump's advisors and Republicans across the country did. We also know a lot of what Donald Trump said out loud and did publicly. What our reporting, we thought, advanced and what made it important is that it brought Trump himself into the effort in a way that we had not seen before. This was more than just using, calling people and pressuring them and filing fruitless lawsuits. This was contemplating using 3 of the most powerful institutions, not just in the country, but in the world: the Department of Defense, the Justice Department, and the Department of Homeland Security. And to use that apparatus as the president of the United States, the person who controls them, and consider using them in this effort to remain in power, sets itself out as one of the more extraordinary efforts that was underway to undermine this election. I'm not diminishing the other things that he tried, but we thought that this attempt was in a special lane of itself, and he was there and was more than just curious about the idea.
Do we know, Mike, what why they thought it would be necessary or helpful or would advance the plot to physically seize voting equipment? I mean, whether they were going to have the Defense or Homeland Security or the Justice Department pull off this scheme, why did they want the physical equipment?
It's a great question. And even as we were finishing our reporting on this, I was thinking to myself, well, why did they want these machines? because it's so different than any other type of election interference we've seen in this country. To our best understanding from our reporting, they wanted the machines because they thought that the machines, or they had been hacked. The conspiracy was that the Dominion machines had been hacked, and that they needed to get their hands on the machines so they could show that there had been hacking and that votes had been turned, away from Trump that should have been for him. So they needed the machines in order to do that. At the same time, though, I don't know how this relates to it. Flynn wanted to rerun the election. Flynn wanted for the government to have another election. I have no indication that the seizing of it was related to that. But Flynn, in these television appearances in which he said out loud the same stuff that's being reported here, talked about the idea of rerunning the election.
I mean, presumably, what happens here, if it works, right? If they can get a federal agency to head out in force and start seizing voting equipment all over the country, that at the very least creates such a controversy, creates such a stir, creates such an appearance of seriousness about what's gone wrong in the election that would undergird with steel any effort by state legislators to unfinalize election results, to decertify election results, to say there's some reason that they can't clearly say that Biden won or that the results have a definitive were definitive and conclusive. I mean, in the same way that we saw the Justice Department draft letter to Georgia, where they were going to hype claims of fraud to Georgia state legislators as a basis for telling those legislators that they should reconsider the finalization of the electors there. Presumably, this would have been such a scandal. It would have been such a constitutional crisis in the country that it would have opened the door to those to friendly legislators in those states actually saying that the election wasn't over.
Correct. The problem is that he couldn't find someone to do it. And it's a constant theme that runs through his presidency, whether it's trying to fire Mueller or, a range of different things. This is a pattern. He wants to do something. He doesn't want to do it himself. He asks